Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I hope everybody can hear me okay. So today we're going to be going through the power of financial storytelling. So I've got on the line with me today Louw from Outsourced CFO, and he's going to share some insights with us, and also Alex Clark from Receipt Bank in South Africa as well. So I'll let them introduce themselves in just a moment, but just before we go through that, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. So if you just want to close down any other apps that you have that might be open on your computer, just so it doesn't slow down your connection too much, we'll also send you a recording afterwards. So if there's bits you don't catch, you will get a copy. And please ask any questions in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll answer these towards the end for you as well. So just keep popping those in as we go along. So introductions. So I'll start by introducing myself. So I am Yolande. I work for Spotlight Reporting as a business development manager. So part of my role is really helping accounting firms assist their clients with our great reporting tool and some of the outputs that we can give them to really make sure that they are on their way to a really strong business advisory focus. And I love speaking to our accounting friends. So I look after South Africa and also some parts of Australia as well. I'll hand over to you, Louw.
Hi, Yolande. Thanks so much for having me, and welcome to everyone to this webinar. My name is Louw Barnardt. I'm a chartered accountant and one of the co-founders and the managing director of a company called Outsourced CFO. So we're a CFO services and cloud accounting company based out in Cape Town in South Africa. And we help our entrepreneurial clients to rethink and automate and scale their companies.
Awesome, great, thanks, Louw. And over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Yolande. Hi, everyone. For those who haven't seen or heard of me before, I'm Alex. I'm the General Manager of Receipt Bank South Africa. You'll hear I'm a Brit, so I've been living in South Africa now for 2 years and working with the fantastic firms that we have here, like, for example, Louw, to try and bring the kind of cloud benefits and automation into South Africa. And I spent 3 years in our London office before moving here. And over the last 2 years now, we've built a team of 13 people in South Africa that are helping, other firms like Louw to try and, embark on that journey. And that's something that we'll be talking a bit more about today as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Cool, so I'll go through the agenda for today. So first we'll kick off with some introductions, just covering off our key points that we're going to go through today. Then Louw will take us through the power of financial storytelling. Alex will then go through maximising time for storytelling with Receipt Bank. And I'll take you through some data visualisation with Spotlight reporting. And then we will have some time at the end to answer those questions that you add into the panel. So let's get started with the introduction. So the key discussion points for today are going to be, firstly, the best way to break down complex concepts and statistics for your clients, how to develop a strong narrative when reporting and forecasting on business performance, skills you'll need to quickly and accurately convey strategic insights, and techniques that will increase your credibility as an advisor and increase trust in the numbers just by using the data visualization and analytics. So let's kick off firstly with Louw, and he's going to share from his perspective the power of financial storytelling and some of his experience. So I will hand over to you, Louw.
Thank you, Yolande. There we go. I hope you guys can see my screen on this side. Yeah, so we're going to jump into a bit of the narratives around financial storytelling. So this is the Outsourced CFO team, and I think over the last couple of years, we've been on a journey of figuring out how do we as accountants who speak finance and accounting and tax convey a message to entrepreneurs and business owners who speak kind of a different language to us. How do we package the financial information in a way that is digestible and user-friendly for an entrepreneur to quickly take away those golden nuggets that they need in order to take their business forward? Because I'm sure you guys will agree, if you bombard them with too much information too fast, they're not going to really retain it, and they're not going to be able to act on all of that. So let's start with this. Numbers are boring, right? If you look at the screen on the right, if I start talking you guys through accounting expenses and bank charges and computer expenses for each one of the individual months. By the time I get to total operating expenses on the bottom right, the entrepreneur is probably going to be asleep, right? Entrepreneurs are adrenaline junkies by nature. They like things fast and exciting. Their lives are kind of geared towards that. They are risk takers, and they're guys who think out of the box. So if we go and take them through each individual line item of for instance, a list of expenses, the guys are very likely going to fall asleep somewhere in the process, and you're going to miss an opportunity to give them those core nuggets that they really need to take them forward. So you have to grab their attention, because there's a million things competing for it right now. They're thinking about the next sale they have to make, the next kind of rollout they have to do, a staff member they have to hire, probably a staff member they have to fire, things at home, things at work, cash flow, and a whole bunch of other things. You're competing for that attention when you're giving them feedback on finances. So you're really going to have to think outside of the box in order to give them proper feedback that they can take in. So then we get to the power of storytelling. So I don't know how much time you guys have spent on this topic, but we find storytelling is really a powerful tool that can be used to help entrepreneurs better understand finance and just life in general. So a couple of things that have come out in the last while as neuroscience has progressed around storytelling that's really, really interesting. It's just things like, if you take in facts, like facts and figures, only 2 parts of your brain actually are working at that stage. Whereas if you're listening to an emotionally engaged story, multiple parts of your brain fires. So there's a lot more activity in your brain. That means you're taking in a lot more information at the same time. Another exciting thing is that your brain starts releasing dopamine when you listen to a really good story. So, that dopamine is the feel-good hormone that you normally get when you tick stuff off, when you get stuff done. And the result of dopamine in your brain is that you really retain the information and the experience quite a bit better than if you were just taking in facts or figures. The other thing that's interesting is mirroring. That means that when you're speaking to an audience, say you're speaking to the CEO and COO and a couple of the other management team people, with a good compelling story, you're able to get them to mirror your own thoughts and experiences. So kind of they will start thinking in the same way that you think if you tell a compelling story. So things like that really make storytelling powerful. And that's why from the beginning of time, people have used stories in different ways to bring messages across. If you guys think about the basic hero's journey, this is about a 12-part journey that's used for more than half of Hollywood's stories are based on this exact template, and more than half of the top watched YouTube videos for TED Talks also kind of revolve around storytelling based on the narrative of the hero's journey. So it goes something like this. A hero is introduced, something happens in their life that calls them to action. They need some kind of assistance in order to start taking action, and generally a mentor steps in to give them some advice. Then they depart on a journey where they meet new friends and make enemies and face various trials and battles that they need to overcome. They dive into a crisis where they have to figure things out for themselves and overcome. And generally, they just by the seat of their pants, they overcome. They get the treasure, they get the result, they win the day, and they return back home. When they're back home, their life is never the same again. They've reached resolution, they can teach others, and generally they live happily ever after. So this is kind of the narrative of almost any good story that's out there. So as we're diving deeper into the storytelling narrative, there are 5 things that are present in every good story. The first one is a hero. Now, I want us to think about if we're telling the story of a company's finance to a group of executives or to the founding team or to your client, whoever that client might be. So you might walk into that finance meeting, you're a highly qualified finance professional, you've spent your years in articles and varsity and throughout your corporate life in gaining experience. And this is the finance meeting. So you know your stuff. This is your playing field. So you might very much walk in there thinking, I'm the hero, I'm going to save the day with the finances I'm going to present, we're going to turn this company around. But that's very dangerous ground, because everyone sitting in the room, they are the hero of their own story. The entrepreneur sitting there, they're running their own story, and in that story, they are the hero. So I think a very important takeaway from storytelling for me as a finance professional is to always remember that the client is the hero. The entrepreneur that you serve, they're going to see themselves. So don't try to portray yourself as that hero. You want to make sure that you have enough credibility so that the hero listens to you, but we'll get to what our role is a little bit later. The next thing is a desire. So every good story has something that the hero wants. The hero wants to achieve something, they want to win over the beauty, they want to win the prize, beat the foe. There's a specific desire. So when we're thinking about telling a story to an entrepreneur around finance, what is it that they're looking for? What is the desire of an entrepreneur? And generally, this would take the form of, we want to make sure that we have cash in the bank at the end of the month when we need to pay salaries, pay payroll taxes, pay VAT, and all of those things. So cash flow is generally one of the big desires of an entrepreneur. We want to make sure we have enough for this month and enough for the next couple of months going forward. So a good view on cash flow is important. We also want to make sure that the company is being run profitably in a way that can generate returns for the founding team, either at the moment or sometime in the future. So the next big desire is profit, right? There's also other things like, if you think about valuation, increasing the valuation of the company. Those things are generally the different types of desires that an entrepreneur would have. Then you've got your villain, running out of cash, the tax man, paying too much tax, running into all sorts of trouble with legislation. A whole bunch of different things can form your villain in this story as you paint the picture of the finances. And then there's the sage, the kind of mentor, the experienced person that whispers into the ear of the hero. And that's where we as finance professionals step in. We are the experienced person that can kind of give the hero that guidance they need in order to move their finances forward. So we want to not take the role of the hero themselves. We want to make sure we take the role of the mentor or of the sage that can give the input and give the guidance and challenge the hero to be their absolute best self and to overcome the villain. And then there's a victory. You need a great outcome at the end of a good story. So we want to make sure we put those actionable steps in place to be able to say, what is our victory and how do we achieve that? What are our next steps from this finance meeting? Are we going to things that we can execute on? Like, what are we going to do next to make sure that we win the day at the end of it? So you can think about all of these elements as you're trying to put your presentation for the numbers together. I know that you might have half an hour, maybe an hour, maybe 90 minutes maximum. And you want to kind of use that to tell as good a story that everyone in the room will remember as many of the key important points as they can. So great stories, then just to finish up the storytelling narrative, is that they answer three different questions. The first one is, what does the hero want? So we've spoken about cash flow, profitability, good valuation, peace of mind, stability in the company. Those kind of things are what your hero wants. The next thing is, what is in their way? What is blocking the hero from getting to these things? And then you can identify all the problems and issues that you would have likely raised in your risk analysis or in your financial forecast or in your financials that you're presenting, the story financials that you're presenting. And the last one is, what will happen if they get it or if they don't get it? So kind of putting the consequences and the upside on the table to say, look, here's what we want, here is how we will, here's the things that are in our way, the problems, and here's how we should go about trying to get it, because if we don't do it, this will happen. If we do it, that will have a positive outcome. So we want to kind of make that as compelling as possible so that management takes action at the end of the day. And if you're interested in this hero's journey, there's a great YouTube video in the link below that just takes you through, I think it's a TEDx talk. It takes you through this hero's journey in case you want to spend more time on storytelling. But I want to make this really practical for you guys. So I've got one tool here that I've singled out as a really powerful storytelling tool that I think is potentially quite useful when you're speaking to your entrepreneur. So it's called the Power of One. It's also called the 7 levers. So it's basically a tool that's used to portray what a 1% improvement in one of 7 different metrics can make to the company's cash flow and profitability. So it looks at an increase in price, increase in volume, reduction of cost of sales, reduction of overheads, and then a reduction in debtors days, a reduction in stock days, and an increase in creditors days. These are your 7 levers. So the idea would be that, for instance, if you increase any one of these 7 by 1%, it will have an influence on either profitability or cash flow or both. So the idea is, if your company runs on a 10% profit margin, if you increase price by 1%, profit will increase by 10%. So in that already you can showcase that, look, if we can figure out a way to increase prices with only 1%, we can add 10% to our bottom line. If we can manage to increase price by 10%, all else being equal, we can double our profit. So you can see how that kind of starts creating an exciting story narrative. So this is a really cool tool. I'm going to just spend 3 minutes running you guys through a little example. So on the left, you'll see a company's financials. The summary of the profit and loss says In 2017, the guys did about 35 million turnover. That jumped to 42 million in 2018. They're currently running at quite a low profit margin. Their net profit margin is about in the 5% range for 2018. Their balance sheet, it looks all right, but not amazing. Even though they're profitable, they've got quite a bit of debt, and they're carrying a lot of inventory and debtors. So interesting about the power of one. If you draw the analytics, you can see that the cash position of the company is a negative 3.2 million rand for the year, even though they made an earnings before interest and tax of 4.6 million. So this is an interesting kind of scenario where the company makes profit on the books, but the cash flow is negative. And I'm sure many of your clients would have that scenario where at the end of the day, growth sucks cash. So as a business grows, they need more working capital and more cash resources in order to fund that growth. So you very often get this kind of scenario. They also have pretty slow debtors days, 75 days to recover their debtors, 70 days to pay their creditors, and 180 days on inventory days. So a little bit slow turnaround on all of their kind of key metrics. So then I've just taken 3 of the power of one tools to just look at what influence would this have on the current financial year. So the first one we looked at is just at the bottom right. You'll see a 1% increase in price brings about a 420,000 rand increase in earnings before tax, and also a 333,000 improvement in cash. So you'll see that it adds a full 10% to the bottom line, to the earnings before tax. And it also saves them a big chunk, about 10% of the cash that they lost in this year, just the 1% increase. The same thing then if we add a reduction of cost of sales by 1%, also our net cash flow position improves by another 10%. Our profitability increases by another, let's call it 7-8%. And then also interesting, the reduction of debtors days. If we can only reduce that 75 debtors days by 1 day, we'll save more than 100,000 rand in net cash position at the end of each month. So now if you think, okay, maybe if we can do 75 is quite high, 75 debtors days. If we can bring that down by 10 days, it's already more than 1 million rand. If we can bring it down to 45 days and save 30 days on our debtors, then our whole cash flow issue for the year would be solved. We'll have a positive cash flow for the year. So now you can think about, okay, how do we get our debtors days from 75 down to 45? Doesn't sound like the most difficult thing to start doing. But instead of showing a whole big fat debtors book that has all the upside and downside of 75 days debtors and 100 different clients who all owe money, this is a very kind of simple way to deduct the core issue, which is if we can run debtors better, we can have more cash in the bank. And that solves, that overcomes one of the key villains for the entrepreneur, which is poor cash flow. So you help your hero kind of just achieve that big goal and win that big battle. So some of the best ways in which we can kind of break down complex concepts and statistics for clients. So use these storytelling techniques. Make use of this basic layout of the story to make it engaging, to kind of capture the emotions of the entrepreneur as you go through the financial information, because that'll be exciting for them. They'll actually remember what you're saying. They'll take it to heart and they'll take action as you, as the mentor, whisper into their ear, and they can take action and go into their journey. Simplicity is quite key. So how do we make it simple for them to understand? So there's a whole bunch of numbers. We need to bring that down to what are the core things we can digest and that we can act upon. So simplify all the complexity of the numbers and then use great visuals. I want to show you an example. So if you were asked to begin the finance meeting for 10 minutes, give us an executive summary of the profit and loss and balance sheet and the cash flow position of the business. You might be tempted to export the P&L and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement, and you'll get something looking like this. It's not very appealing. No one's really going to be able to take anything in from this nasty page that's up here. Whereas if you do something like this, where you quickly show what's the revenue trends, how have we done on our KPIs, what is our debtors days looking like, how does cash look, how does the balance sheet look, and what does our website traffic look like? It's a much simpler, very beautiful way to portray pretty much the same information, but you get it across in a different way. If you stand still on this one page for those few minutes, you'll likely get a lot higher engagement from your entrepreneur crew. So how do we develop strong narratives when we're reporting and forecasting business performance? So one of the first key things that, it kind of goes without saying, but you don't always walk into a meeting like that, is know your numbers. So be super prepared, because you are taking the role in the storytelling narrative of the mentor or the sage or the advisor to the hero. So you must be able to really know your stuff. If you go in there and someone asks you a question about the numbers and you're not sure about where this number came from or what it consists of, or something's not quite accurate, you're going to be on the back foot. You're going to lose that mentor or advisor status that you could have had, and the hero is probably going to do their own thing and stop listening to what you have to say. So really know your numbers is critical, and then make those emotional connections. When you engage with your crowd, when you tell the story of the numbers, make sure you connect to what they really want. Like if cash flow is the major concern, spend extra time on cash flow. If cash flow is fine and they're really actually just worried about how much profit can they make sure that you have good analytics and ideas about how can we improve profitability and where it's now. So really connect to whatever it is that they're trying to look to solve, and that's one of your key jobs. And then create a story gap. So in any story there has to be a bit of risk. They say tension leads to attention. So you want to kind of at the beginning show some of the gaping holes in the numbers and show some of the risk areas, and then circle back all the way through to a point where you have all the solutions and all the plans and action steps in place, closing that story gap, which just kind of gives your story nice closure and makes it land really well with the crowd that's listening to you. And lastly, link your story to some great visuals. Make sure that it looks as sexy as that last page I just showed you guys. A couple of key skills you need to quickly and accurately convey some strategic insights. The first one is kind of be creative to earn your hero's attention. And I have a really cool example of one of our team once. There's a tool called Kahoot that you can use to ask questions in the beginning of a meeting. So it's kind of a digital tool. Everyone downloads it on their phone, and you get to ask 10 questions to your crowd. Everyone gets points according to how fast and how accurate they answer. So what our team member did is they put the key numbers for the quarter into one of these systems, and they asked the management team around the table to quickly answer 10 questions about the performance of the quarter to see who actually knows what's going on and who doesn't. It's quite an engaging way to capture everyone's attention, to make sure everyone's paying attention, and that's quite fun and creative. So be creative and earn the attention. Have a proper command of technology. Use the right tools. We live in such an exciting time where there's such great tools available to be able to portray financials. Have a true feel for cash flow. Cash is super, super important, so make sure you nail cash flow, that you can forecast accurately and predict the cash flow into the future, and really use empathy to connect to your crowd and understand what is critical for them. Just on kind of like an idea of a cash flow forecast and what it can look like. Here's an example of just a beautiful way in which you can forecast the cash flow in a way that's simple and understandable. You can see all of the graphs, and the entrepreneurs can connect to it and easily understand all the complexities that is managing cash flow for a big business. So some techniques to increase your credibility as an advisor: summarize and highlight. So focus on those most important points, like we've said. Give the hero the tools that will overcome the villains. So have the next steps, the action points, the suggestions of what can be done next to make sure that things move forward in the right way, that overcomes the challenges of the hero. And then use visuals and graphics and really cool tools to make complex concepts and key points just stand out, to make it simple for the entrepreneurs to connect to what you're saying. Something like this, to do a revenue breakdown and a gross profit breakdown, is such a big win when you speak to the guys. Then I just want to share my last 3 minutes, just share 2 concepts from ZeroCon. Our team just came back from London, ZeroCon, and something that really stood out for me was, this is UK stats, but I'm sure it's definitely the same all over the world. 80% of businesses work with an external accountant, so that's great for all of us. But 70% of those businesses would not recommend their accountant or advisor to others. So that's quite a hectic stat. 70% would not recommend us. And 29% of businesses are likely to switch their accountant or bookkeeper in the next financial year. So it shows that there's a huge amount of space for us as accountants and advisors to still do a lot better by our entrepreneurs, to make sure that entrepreneurs are really connected and getting the value from what we're doing every day. And a lot of that is linked to how they perceive that value when you're sitting in front of them and when you're doing your presentation and telling your story of their numbers to them. The other thing is like kind of a challenge of Where do you spend your time, right? On the left-hand side, you guys will see it's the tasks that keep us busy. Punching in data, preparing reports, doing recons, doing invoicing, etc. Whereas on the other side, what it is the human side, like asking the entrepreneur, why are you doing what you're doing? What is your ambition? How are you going to achieve it? And how are you doing it so far? If you can just, it's the same numbers that you have keyed in and reconciled and reported on the left, but the way in which you tell that story on the right is kind of the key thing that will connect those numbers to the entrepreneur and show them, ultimately show them the value. So I guess remember that you are not the hero in the story. This is a big point I think that stood out for our team. But also remember that without you, the hero cannot win the day. So it's critical for us as accountants and finance professionals and advisors to be able to help those entrepreneurs to realize their dreams and win their big battles at the end of the day. So yeah, guys, that's what I've got for you on storytelling. I hope it's been insightful and interesting. You're welcome to get in touch with me if there's any questions or any ideas. I think at the end we'll also be open to questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So many interesting insights and bits and pieces I'm sure everybody can take away. So I do encourage everyone to definitely pop some questions in. I'm sure we can definitely expand on some of that stuff. But I will hand over to Alex now. So he's just going to take us through how to maximize time for storytelling with Receipt Bank. So over to you, Alex.
Cool. Thanks, Yolande. So yeah, we're going to talk about maximizing time for storytelling. So if you move on to the next slide, or the first slide of my deck, Yolande, I think just something that is so crucial to kind of pick up from what Louw has said is that storytelling is important. It's engaging. It's what's going to allow you to connect with your clients and ultimately help you to shift that perhaps 70% of your firm not wanting to refer you to perhaps being 70% that would want to refer you. And for us, and this is where we fit in, this is where we combine so powerfully with Spotlight, is in order for you to tell that story, you need to have the data at the beginning. You need to have that information in front of you at the right time of the month, in the right place, so that you can sit there and interpret it. You can actually look at it and understand what story you're going to go and tell your clients. And really where we come in as Receipt Bank, if you skip on to the next slide, Yolande, is about facilitating that connection. It's about facilitating the journey by which you can get that information from your clients and then process it and turn it into something that's usable and understandable, turn it into actually valuable information. So we're a digital bookkeeping tool. We're used by over 50,000 accountants and bookkeepers and well over 300,000 SMEs worldwide. And we're processing, last month we processed nearly 13 million slips and invoices, bank statements, sales invoices as well. In a cost-effective and fast manner, that means that now you can actually get that information in through the door, and actually once you've had it processed by us, you can actually start doing the work that Louw's talking about when you go and sit in front of your clients. We firmly believe in what we're seeing in trends worldwide is that, and this is no different in South Africa, that every firm has two problems. The first one is collecting that financial information. The second one then is getting information from it and putting it into a format that's ready to use. So if you just move back one slide, Yolande, move back to the minimizing time getting data slide.
There, guys, just had a bit of a technical difficulty.
That's fine. That's not a problem at all. So the objective for us is, once we've allowed you to have that connection, is to then help you to do this. It's to help you to minimize the amount of time that you're spending it, so you can actually increase what you're doing when you're telling that story. We ran a really cool series of webinars earlier in the year where we talked about daring to adapt. And similar to Louw's theme around being, the hero, your entrepreneur is the hero, and they're trying to overcome the villains. Actually, you've got the opportunity as the sage-like mentor to become your own hero, but to insert yourself as the hero in their story. Now, that's not taking away, as Louw said, from them being the hero, but it's to help them in achieving their goals, to help them in overcoming the challenges that they face on a daily basis. And I think, Louw's talked so nicely about the fact that business owners speak a different language. You guys are on the front line, you're seeing it every single day. They don't give a monkeys about operating expenses. They don't really understand when you're talking about, their performance in the last quarter. What they really care about is, can they afford to pay their staff this month? Can they open a new site? Can they expand? Can they launch a new product? And so having the information in front of you and having it usable and obviously presented nicely is so important, because we know that in South Africa, it's a bit of a dogfight. You know, cash flow is really tough, and actually every single cent, every single rand that's coming in and going out of a business is really, really crucial. You know, the 70% of businesses that were surveyed in 2018 were turning over revenue of less than 200K. So if you've got less than 200,000 rand turnover, you know, each rand is so important, because you need to make sure you're putting it into the right pot. And that's where, if you can get the right flow, you can get information coming through a tool like Receipt Bank. It's going to allow you to fetch it from your clients quicker. It's going to allow you to process it much more effectively, and it's going to allow you to focus on that storytelling element. So if you skip on to the next slide, Yolande, you know, we talk about the ease of use, we talk about the flow of that data, and really what we're trying to get into your hand and into your client's hand, more importantly, is that it's a really straightforward flow. It's about giving your clients a mobile app, it's about giving them an email address they can send information to, or it's about allowing them, we know that some of these guys up in Uppington or in Clerksdorp perhaps, you know, don't have the smartest of mobile phones, we get that a lot, but it's about allowing them to upload and scan information into their computer and put it into our platform. Because once they've got that data into our system, we can go and do the magic for you. We can go and do the data extraction, we can go and do the processing. It's secure, and we're going to store it for you, but you can then start compiling rules. And the more you can tell us to do, the more you can educate and train us, actually, A, the less time it's going to spend you doing the bookkeeping, but B, the more time it's going to allow you to actually go and start looking at the information, to start spotting the trends, to start being able to give them that quarterly or annual performance analysis that says, hey, look, you're trending in the wrong direction, your cash flow is not very good, perhaps you have got really high debtors, and if you could just increase your price by 1%, the marginal gains for you as a company is going to be exponentially more. And so, you know, we talk about this really straightforward process. We talk about it being a snap, throw, go. You take a picture, you throw away your receipt, and you move on with your life. And actually, when you can start, as you know, firms like Louw have done, you can start implementing that into your business. Well, the opportunity for you and your clients is exponentially higher. And so, if we move forward one more, we talk about, no, that's back. Go forward one. We've got technical challenges left, right, and centre here.
Sorry, I'm out.
No,
sorry, I think we'll get there in the end.
There's a bit of a buzzword, a bit of a buzz phrase that people are throwing around about being a connected advisor. An advisor in itself, I think, is one that is perhaps overused. But what we really mean by that is about the human connection. It's about integrating and interacting with your clients. And Louw said it really nicely, that part of advising is almost understanding your clients. What do they relate to? What do they understand? And if you can do that, you can then look at how you present this information to them. You know, the Kahoot quiz is really cool. It's really engaging. And for most of your clients, it's going to be a really good thing to introduce. But if you can actually take the time to invest in that relationship because you're in front of your desk working with them, rather than sitting behind your desk doing the unvaluable, time-consuming work that it is bookkeeping, or is actually perhaps going and building a cash flow forecast in Excel, you know, you can, you know, get in front of your desk and you can spend time understanding them. And that's where we see, you know, you can connect your Receipt Bank into any of the GLs that are operating in South Africa, and then you can pull that data out into a tool like Spotlight. It's going to allow you to really build that synergy. It's going to allow you to connect with your clients. It's going to allow you to spend more time sitting in front of them. And actually what you can then start doing when you're looking at this information is you can tell that story. You can help them on their journey, because very few business owners have gone into business to spend time investigating their financial reports, to spend time doing bookkeeping. And Louw's nodding. I'm sure everybody behind the computer screen is nodding as well. It's crap. Nobody enjoys it. Nobody likes it. We like it because that's the profession we're in, right? But for business owners, they've got other things they want to be doing. And, you know, again, Louw talked about competing interests. Huge amount of competing interests that are either professional or personal that these business owners are trying to overcome. And so building something that allows you to connect not just with them, but connect the journey, connect the process with tools like the ones you see in front of you, is going to allow you to open up the opportunity for that storytelling. And if you move forward one more slide again, it's no longer, and I love this guy that's about to pop up on the screen in a second, a guy called Seth Godin. You know, he talks about it's no longer about what you're making, it's no longer about what you're selling, but it's about the stories you're telling. And let's not lose sight of the fact that in this industry at the moment, when you're selling your advisory services, you're selling your compliance, your bookkeeping, your monthly accounts, you're selling a product. You're selling a product to a consumer who is deciding whether or not they want to purchase it. And so it's not about going into their face and saying, hey, look, you can buy bookkeeping, it's going to cost you X per month, because then they're going to start comparing you against the next accountant, the next bookkeeper, and you're going to end up in this race to the bottom. They're going to be competing, or you're going to be competing purely on the price at which you're selling. And so you've got to tell stories. You've got to help them to understand how their business is growing. You've got to help them to understand how you as their advisor can help them on the journey that they're going on. And, you know, I love working with Louw and his team, because you've got to understand why it is you're doing what you're doing. You've got to understand what your journey is. And you've got to help these firms, these businesses that you're working with, your clients, your customers, if you will, to understand why they should come on this journey with you. Because then what you can start doing is you can really become that hero. You can become the hero in your story, and you can, you know, set yourself on this amazing journey that Louw has taken his firm on, and you can actually start to facilitate your clients in doing exactly the same thing. But we firmly believe, and you know, Yolande is going to come on and talk about Spotlight in a second, that in order for you to do that, you have to have a really, really straightforward and really, really clear process. You've got to be using software and tools in order to reduce the amount of time you're spending doing tasks that a machine can do much faster. And actually what you can then start doing is, if you think back to that slide at the very beginning, you can start reducing the time it takes for you to do the day-to-day menial work, and actually increase the opportunity for you to start doing more valuable services with your clients. And you can choose how you use that time. I talk about time is a very rare commodity. Once you've spent it, you can't get it back. But the great thing about it is when you have it, you can choose where to spend it, you can choose how to use it. And different firms will choose to do that in different ways. So for Louw, it's about engaging in and you know, growing his client base. It's about spending more time helping them in their journey. For other people, actually, it might be about getting home earlier, because at the moment you're already at capacity. It might be about leaving work at 5 rather than 9. It might be about not working on a Saturday and stopping work at 3 on a Friday. And the same is true for your clients. The same is true for your customers. You're giving them the ability to make that choice. And by helping them to understand their business better, you're helping them to look forwards. And we talk about looking forwards rather than looking back. So, you know, we've touched a little bit on the economy in South Africa and the opportunity we have as advisors here. It's about giving them the means to make those decisions looking forward. I will never get sick in South Africa of saying nobody cares. Very few people care how they paid their staff 6 months ago. In March this year, when we paid our entire staff base, I don't care now, but what I look forward to is, can I pay them this month? Do I have the cash flow in order to hire somebody new next month? Because we're getting more orders in. We've got a higher stock base and we need to sell more. And that's really where you can come in and you can tell the story of that journey with your clients. So if you move on to my last slide, Yolande, we firmly believe that, as a tool, as a product, as a platform, we're really integral in helping to give you that choice and helping to open up the door for you to be able to tell stories in the way that Louw spoke about so eloquently at the beginning of this webinar. So by helping you to reduce the amount of time on your bookkeeping, increase the intelligence with which your team and your staff are able to do that work, you can then push it through into tools like Spotlight, where you're going to get exponentially more value for money than you are building those pivot tables in Excel at the moment. And the way that we're going to help you to do that is slap bang on the screen in front of you right now. We're going to help to build a package around your practice. It's a simple recurring cost. And more important than anything else, it's about helping and working with you. We talk about partnership. We talk about going on a journey. It's about building a service for your practice that is personal to your practice, personal to what you need, and giving you that onboarding, that training, and that support in order to facilitate that journey and help you to really start not just saving an hour per client per month, but do what a lot of our firms like Louw are doing, which is an hour per client per week. And if you start building that over 30, 50, 100 clients, suddenly that's a lot of time for you to do exactly whatever it is you want to do with it. So that's our journey. That's how we believe that storytelling comes into the forefront. And when you can start using something that is going to help you to streamline your kind of top of the flow, top of the river upstream work like bookkeeping, and you're opening this wonderful door to plug it into a tool like Spotlight, which Yolande is about to smash out of the park for us now as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. Lots of really good points there. Thanks for sharing. And you'll start to see as I kind of go through data visualization with Spotlight that there are a lot of shared sentiments and topics, being that we're both sort of, tools that are used in essence to kind of automate some processes to help free up time within a practice. So I'm just going to go through a couple of key points. So with Spotlight reporting, there are a couple of key things that our advisors really use Spotlight reporting for. So other than the obvious fact that the tool will produce your management reports fairly automated and be able to semi-automate your forecasting and that kind of thing, this is really the key kind of focus here. So the first point of visualization of data. So the tool essentially allows you to bring in the data that's usually really hard for clients to understand. So back to Lou's point that he made earlier, that numbers are boring, you have to understand that sometimes your clients aren't really looking to sit there and go through a whole list of numbers and try to make sense of it. It's really about being able to present it in a way that your client will understand. So with the Spotlight tool, you're able to generate, some reports, charts and graphs that are really visual and easy for those clients to interpret along with your assistance. Then we've got automation. So there's a couple of things for automation. So the first thing is ensuring it's actually easy for your staff within practice to use the tool. So the automation essentially means that there's a whole bunch of tasks that you would normally be sitting there doing on a computer. Usually the tool is Excel. You're sitting there trying to create charts and graphs to help explain what's going on, as part of your client's business. The automation essentially just takes away that process in the middle and allows you to free up your time. So the really important bit with the automation is not only the ease, but also the time that you get back that you can actually spend with your clients having business advisory type conversations and giving them advice on what the next steps are. And the last point there is customization. So with our tool, you are able to customize reports, charts and graphs. We've got a gallery of over 150 charts and graphs that we've pre-created, and that's off the back of what we think is important based on industry, so you can have a look through what's already in there. However, we also have the ability for you to be able to tailor the message. So we've got an ability to create bespoke charts and graphs if you really want to hone in on a specific data set and have a look at what's going on with your clients' numbers, and then you can provide them really relevant advice. And it's really key here because there's lots of tools out there for us to use in today's day and age, which is fantastic. But sometimes what you'll find is some of the tools will give you templated types of end product. And all that means for you is that you don't get to convey the message you actually want to convey. So it's really important that you use that customization to be able to deliver the right advice based on the real data that we're able to sort of bring into the tool there. So bringing the data to life. So a lot of the standard sort of reporting tools really focus mostly on financial data, which is fantastic because that's where our expertise are and where we kind of want to sit. But where we can start to get really creative is by bringing in data from other data sources. So you'll see that our tool integrates with your standard financial systems. So you've got your Sage, your Xero, your QuickBooks, whatever your clients might be using. You'll also see that we've got some other integrations there. So an interesting one, for example, is Google Analytics. So you can very quickly now start to have a look at what the website traffic is like, as an example, and how that might relate to your client's revenue line, as an example. You can start to kind of cross-correlate the data and really be able to provide them with a full story and a full narrative as to what's happening with their business. Also, you've got different other sort of integrations you can use here. So as an example, you've got Excel as well. So we often use Excel to bring in things like number of new customers. So if your client's got a POS system that we don't integrate with, you can use Excel to bring in that data. And then again, you can kind of build out a really bespoke report for your client to really show them how their business is performing and how the financials are able to sort of move the business forward with all of that extra data you can add in there. So interesting quote here. So we focus a lot on, the end product, what we're able to produce for our practices and our partners that we have on board at Spotlight Reporting. But really what our key focus is at Spotlight Reporting is helping accounting firms build their advisory fees out. So at the inception, we generally tend to go through, what are you currently doing with your firm at the moment? What advisory services are you offering? How can we use this tool to be able to help you build your advisory fees? So we see sort of a 10 to 50% advisory fee growth in that first year. So that's a really interesting quote. It is something that we specialize in. So you'll see that we often talk about things, different programs that we sort of run. We have a customer success team as an example, and a transform and action program, which really allows you to understand, okay, we're able to build this great story, great narrative using this tool. We've got a fantastic set of reports. Now we've got to go sell it to the market. How do we get our clients wanting this information? How do we get them liking this information? And how do we get them to keep coming back to our firm and receiving this information from us? So that's another thing. We can go into a bit more depth if you want to get in contact with us about that. But those are the kind of extra things that we kind of really focus on, and being those key drivers, to really helping you build out your business while you help your clients as well. So just some examples of some of the outputs. I think you would have seen a few of these in Louw's presentation as well, but just a couple of examples of some of the charts and graphs that we're able to produce. So this is an example of a dashboard. A dashboard is just a one pager with 6 key metrics of your choice that you want to put on there. So we've just chosen these key metrics for this particular business. These are really great to be able to sit down with a business at the end of a month or at the end of a quarter and kind of look at something like this and be able to have a look at how the numbers are performing at a high level. From these visual diagrams, you can really start to explain what's happening, and then kind of go into strategy and try and make those adjustments based on what you see here. We've got an example of a profit and loss. So I think in Louw's presentation, he showed you an example of a profit and loss when you just kind of export it out of the system. It's not very enticing. It doesn't look very interesting. And for the standard business owner that, doesn't really look at numbers the same way an accountant does, something a bit more visual like this might appeal to them a bit more and might speak to them a little bit more. So, we've kind of included the standard and profit and loss here. And then down the bottom, we've got a couple of charts that we feel are relevant and honing in on some key points that we really want to discuss with the client there. And then lastly, an example of like a cash flow type analysis. So this one's a really popular page for us in our reporting suite. So we have a lot of our partners who have clients, SMB type clients who, often say, I've brought in, $1 million in revenue this year, but I can't see where any of my cash is sitting. This is a really nice, easy, visual way to be able to show them exactly where their cash is sitting in a manner that they'll actually understand it. So that's a really popular page in our reporting suite. And that's pretty much it really for me in terms of what I wanted to kind of show you through today. If you do want to try and have a look at what Spotlight is able to deliver, I know Louw's had plenty of success using our tool, has really integrated it really well into his practice. You can jump onto our website and sign up for a free trial. It's full access, it's for 28 days, and it will allow you to bring in live data and just have a play around with the system and see what it's able to produce. It'll allow you to create reports. You can go in and try to build a full 3-way forecast. You can really see the power of the tool as you go through that process. But that's pretty much it from my end in terms of Spotlight. So we're just going to move on to a Q&A session here. So let me just check in to see what questions we've got in our question box here. So first question we've got off the rank here is for you, Louw, and the question is, if you were just starting out in your practice right now, where would you begin with all of this? What would be your first steps?
Yeah, I think if I were to just start now, I think you sort of have a unique opportunity in terms of you don't have any legacy technology in your business yet. You can start from scratch, so you can do it right. I think in the last 5 years, the cloud technology tools that have come out, they have moved so much. It's so different to run a practice today as opposed to 5 or 10 years ago. So you have an opportunity to start anew, look at what the absolute best technology in the world is that you can use. We can give you a couple of examples. Figure out what that ideal tech stack is that you want to use. Maybe start small, start maybe with a cloud accounting package and 2 or 3 bolt-ons to that, just to keep it simple. Don't try to start with 50 different tools, because there are hundreds of tools out there. Maybe try to figure out what will add the most value and save you the most time in the immediate couple of months, and then start trying that. Take your bet, pick your systems, select kind of one system per core function, and then roll that out across your couple of first clients until you can become an expert in that, your first core system, and then your first plugin, second plugin, etc., until you've got a nice tech stack that can help support your business. Because I think apart from finding the right technology and implementing that, there's a whole lot that you're going to have to be doing as you start to practice, like selling and marketing and branding and recruiting people and a whole bunch of other stuff. So make sure that you're not wasting time doing things in the manual and old way by not using the best technology out there.
Okay, cool. That's actually a really nice segue into the next question here. And the question is, how do you start to sell advisory? It looks like there's lots of complex information you're delivering to a client, which often has a lot of fees that sit with that. What's the best way to sell this type of service?
Yeah. So I think if you can identify the pain point that the clients have, each entrepreneur will have a couple of pain points that they're struggling with in the business. And generally a finance professional is able to solve some of those critical pain points. So if it's, every month when I order inventory, my cash flow goes haywire and I don't know like how I make salaries every month. Every second or third month when maybe every second month when I pay VAT, my cash flow is a disaster and I just barely make it and stressing me out. Then, if you're able to put the right metrics in place as a professional to make sure that you can forecast accurately, you can account well, you can minimize tax, you can maximize margins, that starts to add incremental value. It does come at a cost, but I think your job is to kind of identify what the key pain point is that the client is willing to pay for, and then to offer a solution to that. Maybe resist trying to go out there and tell them what all you can do. I think as an advisor, it's easy to go out and say, look, our guys are so clear, we can solve this and this and this and this and this and this. Don't lead with that. Maybe just lead with listening to the entrepreneur and figuring out what is the big pain point you can help solve and what will they pay for that.
Okay, fantastic. All right, and another one for you, Lou. What was the first couple of pieces of technology that you implemented, and what were the challenges you faced with those?
Sure. So we started just about 6 years ago, coming straight out of the audit industry. So when I think the most complex technology we started out with at that stage was probably Microsoft Office on our computers, just because we didn't know any better. We started working with clients across different sets of software tools. Some of them were compiling numbers on Excel. Some were using desktop-based software. And then we found a couple who were using cloud technology. And because South Africa was traditionally quite a pastel market, we found Sage Online quite early on, and our team started just kind of working with that, and then found a couple of limitations in terms of what it can do, especially on the cash flow side. And then maybe 3 years in, found this tool called Xero, and then started on a journey looking at how the guys do technology and how fast they're moving. And then just built out just kind of started moving clients across to one tech tool that you can be really good in, and then figuring out what are the partners in their ecosystem that can support working on it. So for instance, you can't do inventory really well if you don't have a proper inventory system. So what is the best inventory system that can plug in? The same with high-level reporting, the same with streamlining paperwork and digitization of slips and invoices. So just finding the right kind of tech stack, I guess, after that.
Okay,
but yeah, when we started, we had no clue. We had to learn the hard way and waste some hours before we could really find the right things.
No, absolutely. Sometimes that's the best way to learn, though, isn't it?
Don't do that, though.
All right, fantastic. And I've got one here for you, Alex. So the question is, how difficult is it to implement a tool like Receipt Bank?
That's a good question. Louw might be best placed to answer that one as well. No, look, I think The beauty of all of these tools, you know, Receipt Bank is no different to you know, a lot of the softwares out there. We will always try and build the product to be as simple and as straightforward as possible, as user-friendly and as engaging as possible, such that you can actually adapt these products very, very quickly. And for us, the beauty is that we have an internal capability, so you can use us within your practice without your client's engagement. And then over time, you can incrementally look at how you engage with your clients and get them to start the journey as well. So it's going to depend slightly on which approach you take as to how quickly you can start to onboard and get that uptake. But what I think is so beautiful is that actually the support and the guidance that comes alongside that is really, really key. So we've got a team of 3 people that are based out of the office in Cape Town who are designed to help with your onboarding, help you to go through that training, help to troubleshoot you know, those first couple of problems you might find you're having, and if needs be, come out even and see your team and do some on-site training with the gang. So it's designed to be really easy. It comes with its challenges, and Louw, you know, might be able to share some insights of some of the challenges he's had. But what, in my opinion, makes it difficult is that it's not about just taking out one process and putting another one back in. It's not about putting a square peg back in a square hole. It's about redefining your entire offering, because there's no point using these tools, no point using these softwares, whether it's Receipt Bank, whether it's a cloud accounting package or a tool like Spotlight, if you're just going to do the same thing you did last month, but on a different package. You need to completely look at how your processes change so you can actually leverage the opportunity that these tools provide. So it's not difficult, it's not hard, it can be done very, very quick. But it's about, you know, us working with you to understand what it is you want to achieve, and then obviously, you know, make sure that we're aligning that to kind of our own programs as well.
Cool, great, thanks Alex. And there's one for Spotlight which is similar, so which says, how difficult is it to implement Spotlight reporting, and how long does it take generally to create reports? So getting set up is pretty easy. So we are a cloud-based tool, obviously. From the time that we say go, it's pretty easy. So it's simply just kind of a click of a button in terms of integrating the different systems and getting all of your data into our tool. And then the creation of a report is the interesting bit. So it really just depends on what level of detail you're wanting to provide your clients. So because the tool is highly customizable and you can change out your reports and change the narrative in each of the pages, you can really build a very complex report that's 14, 15 pages long, or you can build a report that's 4 or 5 pages long. So the time will be based on, I guess, the client and their needs and what message you're trying to get across to that client, and sort of how you're going to choose to create your reports. So it is bespoke by customer, so you can create separate kind of reporting packages for each of your customers. So it does kind of vary, if that kind of answers the question. Then for the forecasting side of things, it is dependent again on the amount of data you're putting in. So your forecast can be a really small forecast for a small, you know, coffee shop, or you could be looking at, you know, doing a forecast for a giant agriculture type company. So, and obviously the forecast is going to differ, and the length of time it takes to produce that will differ as well. But the one thing that's most important is either way you look at it, it's still a lot quicker than the manual processes you usually have to go to actually create this kind of information. And the types of data you can actually get and the way you can present it is almost not possible to do in Excel. So the best way is just to have a look at the tool. You can set up that trial on our website and have a bit of a play around with it and see what the outputs look like. And then if you set up a trial, we'll kind of go through a process with you to show you how it all works and how quickly you can sort of create those reports and forecasts. So I think that is it for our questions there at the moment. So what we'll do is wrap up from here. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Louw for sharing insights. It's always lovely when we can get some real life examples, you know, of how cloud accounting is changing the standard, you know, accounting practice. So thank you so much. And also to Alex as well. So really great insights into the South African market. I know you've been there for a while, so really good to see, you know, some strong representation in South Africa. Lots of great cloud accounting happening there. So if you, Alex or Louw, want to say anything last words before we wrap up?
I would just say thank you for, thanks for having me on. Thank you for kind of giving us an opportunity to share some of our insights as well. And it's Louw's touched on it a few times. Like, it's an incredibly exciting place to be right now with I think there's great change coming in the industry.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, guys, from my side also, just thanks to everyone who listened, and thanks Yolande for hosting us. It's been really fun chatting with you guys, and just go out there and tell some good stories, guys.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks, Louw, and thank you everybody for listening. You will get a recording of the webinar if you missed any bits, or if you want to share it around. So look out for that. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.